Dom and Johnny in the morning. So, because it's top of mind, we talked about leadership 2 episodes ago, and last episode we talked about whether or not having a sports background sets you up well for martial arts, which I think sets us up for another program we offer, which is demo teams. So our demonstration teams practice for public events where they demonstrate some martial arts skills. We just had a demonstration for the Make-A-Wish Foundation that went awesome. You were the one that choreographed it. For the first time in years, probably more than 6 or 7 years, we actually got to have fight scenes in a demo. Usually, we're working with a lot of younger ones and we're just getting them used to being on stage. But, these demo kiddos have been demonstrating for a few years now, so they finally were able to level up their skill set. So I figured I'd kick it off to you with kind of a bigger question, but in your opinion, what's the value of demonstrating?
Oh my goodness. There is so many benefits. So rhythm, timing, partnership, control. I feel like the list is so vast. The cool thing about any sort of demonstration, like let's say tournament competition, which in its own way is, a demonstration. You're demonstrating your form or performing your form. And the benefit is the preparation. And I think demo has that same element. When you're in front of a crowd, there was just an extra layer of pressure to really prepare your form or your material. If the only thing that you're worried about is getting your next rank, sometimes it's just it comes down to memorization. But if you're worried about performing in front of a large group of people, I feel like that's when you really step it up. So in the case of tournament competition, it's trophies, but in the case of demo, it's not letting your teammates down.
Yeah.
And that's always, demo has always kind of hit me, in a spot, because I was on the demo team for years. You were too, and you always have this feeling of, I don't want to be the worst person on the demo team. I want to help carry this team as much as I can. And when everyone has that mindset, you have a phenomenal demo. So I think there's just so many benefits. I guess where should we go first with this?
Yeah, I think you've already spoken to it, and as kind of like a character development point of view, I think the biggest lesson you learn is responsibility. You do learn responsibility as just a natural progression in the martial arts, like you said. In order to progress from one rank to the next, you have to take personal accountability for your art and memorizing it, refining it. Tournament is a great reflection of how much responsibility you've taken with your own art. Even if you don't place or anything, like the forms that you perform, you'll appreciate in a different way when you've prepared them for competition versus other things that you might do. But the team aspect is something that I've always found extremely cool, because one of the things about the martial arts that we like to talk about is how it's a personal journey. And oftentimes the students who end up with us training in martial arts, who become phenomenally athletic, start because they don't have a spot for other team-based sports, soccer, baseball, basketball. For whatever reason, they don't end up being a good fit. So they come to us where the martial arts is a more personal journey where we can meet them where they are, and then through training discover their best selves. With demo team, though, now you get to be integrated back into a team, and you value it differently once you've gone through the personal growth process first. The other thing about demo team is, one of the sayings I know Ken would train us to as instructors is, in martial arts, you don't get cut from the team, largely because it's a personal journey. But for demo team, there are standards to meet, and there are very clear expectations. So whereas in your regular training, as instructors, we have a lot of understanding. Everyone's got a different body type. Everyone has different limitations or challenges, things to work through. demo team, either you're performing to the standard or you're not. And especially performance by performance will pick students that match the tone of what the event organizer wants to go through. So, for example, we have a demonstration coming up in about a week and a half, and mostly it's who we're speaking to are parents, and we have some younger kids who have never demonstrated for the first time. I've always thought of this performance that we go to, that we do every year, as more of like we want to give everyone a great experience, and so, you know, even if there are some newer demo team members that may not be as refined as the brown and black belts that we just saw demonstrate, I think it's a good experience. It's kind of safe. But, you know, if we're going to be traveling far, like this one was in Hartford, then we want to make sure we bring our best. So, and we're going to pick students that are going to be able to handle all of the pressures that come with it. I mean, we had a really, like, I don't know what the word, demanding practice schedule for this last demo that not every student is willing or able to make. So yeah, I think the responsibility aspect from a character perspective is probably like the highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And then on the flip side, and like I said, I agree that I think the character part is definitely the most important part. But I think on the self-defense side, there's a lot of merit to taking your art to the next level with demo.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the mindset that you are forced to be in. I spoke to, if anyone that participates on the demo is listening to this, you'll probably remember me speaking these words, but I was talking about the adrenaline dump and what it actually does to your body. It creates a fight or flight response. And when you're in that fight or flight response, your body is going to react to what it knows. Now, it's interesting. It's when you put your body in that position and practice, you actually get better at controlling that fight or flight response. So if let's say I've practiced a block 1,000,000 times, but I've never practiced a block when I felt like I was actually going to get hit and I got that adrenaline dump. A lot of times you get kind of a quick shock to your system and you freeze because you've never felt, what it was like to have your, heart race and your pupils dilate. So in demo, what's interesting is because you have all these people watching and you're really dialing up the intensity, you kind of get this adrenaline dump and you start to get into this fight or flight response, and you're having these punches thrown at you and you're getting used to this. And I feel like that starts to program your body to be better in those situations. So I feel like there is a huge benefit to getting used to having attacks thrown at you, while you're in this state of mind. And then that could potentially help save your life one day. If someone attacked you, all of a sudden you get that adrenaline dump and you go into demo mode, and it could really make a difference. So that's, at least on that part, that's my 2 cents. But
yeah, what's really interesting is in one way, the physical skills of demo are in conflict with a lot of self-defense principles that masters will talk about. So, I think we talked about it on the podcast, but on the last black belt test we did, Master Capozzo demonstrated on you. And as the outsider looking in, especially if you don't have a trained eye, didn't look like he was doing much. You were twitching, which is how there was a lot happening. Mm-hmm. But to him, it looked like he was just putting a hand on you. There wasn't a lot of outward signals that there was a lot going on with like him like poking his fingers into your pressure points or whatever. So when you're a highly refined master martial artist, part of the deception of your art is that it looks effortless. And it is because of all the effort you did in preparation. But in another way, like you said, demo is a great boost for your self-defense. The physical skills, they aren't martial arts efficient, but they are athletic. One of the things my sister and I were talking about is also at this event. There was like a wrestling ring set up with some wrestlers, doing classic like jumping off the ropes and stuff and slam each other into the ground. And there's always the adage that like wrestling is fake, in the sense that they're not actually slamming their head into a pole in a dangerous way. But what's real is the athleticism, like the acrobatics that they're doing. Most people just can't do. So in a lot of ways, even though maybe from a practical self-defense perspective, the pure physical skills may not translate as well, I think the athleticism of having to be bigger and having to be seen and being conscientious of your line while also dealing with the adrenaline dump, I think that's very strong preparation in some ways to what you'd need self-defense wise.
Yeah, and we get caught up in this. This is kind of a tangent, but kind of not. We get caught up in this, old school, ancient philosophy that, the smaller, weaker person, with karate can beat up the bigger guy, which is true. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't benefits of having additional strength. So, leg strength, will help you transmit power from the ground out to your fist. Having strong legs, having a strong core is going to make a massive difference. And yeah, I agree. I mean, after demo, just being covered in sweat, just because you put in everything you had, and especially if it's a long demo.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get that, when other people are doing a fight scene and you're at position 2 and you're just like trying your best to get your breath back before going back in, and that, so absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a huge part of demo is that physicality. Just like any other sports team, it's, I don't think I thought about that in a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and the other thing the mindset part reminded me of is the fact that in demo team, you prepare, and there will always be circumstances outside of your control. Mm-hmm. One of our early experiences with this, and I told them because I remember experiencing it when I was their age, is no matter how you practice your formation, you really can't control the organization's environment. So, I was telling you this, but we were invited to do a demonstration on this lawn area in the center of town. And in my head, it was like, oh, we have this big open lawn space that we're going to perform for everyone. And like, it must have been 3 or 4 minutes before the event, they had the audience sit on the lawn and they had us squished back into this curved sidewalk. So we had prepared the demo to be like a square, and all of a sudden, like, you couldn't fit a square into where they decided to squish us without asking us. So they did an awesome demo, but their preparation didn't match exactly, which is what you see on a black belt test. For this last demo that we just did, we were on a lawn, thankfully, not on a sidewalk. But yeah, when you're doing a black belt test, a lot of times you're not in your preferred environment or the one that you've trained in. And if you have to defend yourself, you're not going to be either. You never know if there's going to be a random, manhole cover in the middle of the lawn that you're trying to defend yourself on, which was the case in this last one. So, getting taken down on grass is a lot different than getting taken down on mats, which is also different than getting taken down on pavement. There's been several times we've demonstrated on pavement or asphalt.
Oh, yeah.
So the combination of preparation and flexibility you have to have, in a lot of ways, demo prepares you for the variants of the black belt test better than just practicing your stuff over and over again in a dojo.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think of all the times that we went up. I think we've been pretty lucky in the past. I don't think I ever ended up on a sidewalk like you guys did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then at this last demo, even with the music, which was interesting, they found a live version of the song, and I think that's a tough one too. I think maybe with demo we might have to travel with USB sticks or something with the song on it.
Yeah. So.
We used to do, CDs, but
Yeah, and we were ready for it. Again, you just never know what the organizers are going to be ready for, what they want to do. There's been so many times it kind of feels like the rug is pulled out from under us, where it's like, we feel like we're on the same page, what is happening? But also in a lot of ways, though, that's a great feeling to be familiar with for self-defense. Because if you have to defend yourself, chances are it's going to feel like the rug got pulled out from under you. So
Yes.
Even though it's not ideal and it can be a little jarring, really that's what martial arts is trying to teach you in general is, if the situation was ideal, you wouldn't have to defend yourself. So it's how do you prepare ahead of time so when the situation is not ideal, you can handle it with more grace and skill than you would be able to if you hadn't prepared.
Yeah, and that kind of starts to lead into the next thing that I mentioned was rhythm and timing.
Yeah.
I think that, the awareness, you have to see everyone in your peripherals. So you can't, look at your partners or anything like that. You really have to be focused on what you're doing. But you have to keep what everyone else is doing in your peripherals. So that builds a really good awareness, which is, both good, for a self-defense purpose and, just for a normal, everyday, increased awareness. Which, I think you're more likely to accidentally get clipped by a car than get attacked by a ninja. So, that awareness is good. Being able to open your focus and, see things at your peripherals and notice them instead of letting them just kind of drift into the ether.
And, to tie in our last episode's topic to this one of our demonstrators in this past demo has a dance background and very involved in dance. And my mom was noticing that, she stood out in terms of the precision and timing. So especially if you do a performing art, dance, then I think you're learning some really strong habits that turbo boost your ability to demonstrate martial arts.
Oh, absolutely. And since rhythm is so important and dance is 100% rhythm, it really helps. And a lot of these kids, especially if they didn't grow up playing an instrument, which some people don't, bringing that rhythm in is tough. But it is not only make the demo look super crisp, but it also makes you a competent fighter. Yeah. Because part of fighting is not really creating rhythm, but breaking rhythm. And you can't really break rhythm if you don't understand rhythm. But, especially in the sparring ring, the people who really excel are the ones who can find the rhythm in an opponent and then exploit it. So developing rhythm, being able to, hit certain moves on a certain beat, is kind of a first step in there. And I think it makes a huge difference, and it might make you better at a musical instrument.
Yeah. So to get a little bit more philosophical for a moment, there have been times in this school, for lack of a better term, our demo teams have been healthier and less healthy. And a lot of that has to do with, the students that are, again, willing and able to show up for practice, because you have some that really want to be there, but they have camping trips and they've got family outings and they're just not there to practice and be part of the team. And I have just noticed over the past 20 years or so, demo teams are healthier when you're a part of them. Like you specifically.
Me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, you, Dominic. And part of that has to do with an eye for choreography. And you have some tenets that I've heard you talk about. So when you choreograph a demo, what are some bullet points that you keep in mind in order to, choreograph something that looks good?
Yeah. So the hardest part, and I swear it's there's this sweet spot where you know what looks good, but then you got to know what looks good to an untrained eye. And that's the sweet spot, is right in the middle. Because a lot of things that we see will be like, that was awesome. And then someone next to us might be like, what happened?
Yeah.
They didn't see it. They didn't see, your knee checking their leg. They didn't see, a returning strike that happened, coming through. So a lot of the small nuance, like you were mentioning with Master Corpozo, when he so elegantly chinad the side of my face.
Yeah.
It didn't look like much, but it felt crippling to me, like I couldn't move, which was awesome, but doesn't look like anything special. So you have to make your moves a little bigger, which is counterintuitive to what we do, which you also mentioned before. But the benefit to that is it gives the defender a better idea of how normal people move. And that's almost invaluable, because we get to this spot where we're so used to taking these perfect karate punches, even hooks and stuff. We'll throw these beautiful hooks, and they won't be these wild, crazy, wind up and hit, or just like throw a crazy hook or a good shove. All of those things that we throw into demo that are big. More often than not, that's typically what's going to be what gets thrown at you. It's going to be something big. There's going to be a wind up. It's not going to be this perfect karate punch.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps kind of identify that. And a lot of times the moves we're doing are just translated versions of our combinations. We just kind of demoize them a little bit. Make them a little bit bigger so the crowd can see them. So that's when I choreograph a demo, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking, at least for the fight scene portion, is the wind up going to be a tell? Because if it's a tell for the person that's defending, it's going to be a tell for the audience. And that's kind of what makes things look really cool. And then as long as you make the strikes big too, that are more, I want to say karate-ish, because you bury the punch and they react like you buried the punch, and it looks good. Even sometimes with the Kempo stuff, if you hit them, 10 times in, 2 seconds, the audience isn't going to see it. And it might look impressive just because of the speed. So that could be an angle, but if that's all they see, then sometimes it just doesn't have that same effect.
Well, and I was going to bring that up because that was a note in a specific direction you took the introductory phase of this demo, which was they were taking their time a little more. My instinct was, you want the audience to be able to see. Mm-hmm. You went the opposite direction. You said, no, you got to double the speed of what's going on to make sure that you maintain energy with the movements. So sometimes there's a rhythm to it, kind of like, you've been talking about, but almost like a roller coaster. There are times you want to slow down so the audience can see the defender burying the punch into the attacker. There's other times, though, where you do want to go a little bit faster. The audience may not see what's going on in particular, but they get a sense of progression of the fight. They're like, oh, man, they just smacked him 15 times. And as long as you're not only doing one or the other, there's kind of like this roller coaster of when you slow down, when you speed up, then it helps create a story.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And two comments on that.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever watched an American Kempo demo, that's pretty much usually what you see is like a flurry of strikes.
Yeah.
And it does look really cool. American Kempo, when they demonstrate, they hit each other pretty hard.
Yeah.
I've been on the receiving end of some of those before, and you get hit by every single strike. So it looks really real to the audience because 9 times out of 10 it is real.
Yeah.
You're getting thumped pretty hard. So that's I think that's one of the differences. You got to be willing, if you're going to be doing those flurries, it's really hard to make them look good by acting alone. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to, put a little weight behind it, so you have to be willing to take the shots if you want something fast to look cool. But yeah, with the non-partner stuff, sometimes it's the exact opposite. And that comes down to, there was, I don't know if you remember, But we had students, a family that went here, and they did a demo, or not a demo, but we had a synchronized form competition.
Yeah.
On the tournament, and they did "We're Not Gonna Take It," and they were doing it to the 8-point blocking system. So it was like, we're not gonna take it. So they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it was slow enough where it was really cool and it was fun, and they did a really good job on it, and they were super synchronized, but it didn't have that intensity.
Yeah.
Because it was just 1, 2, 3, 4.
It
5,
was also
6, 7,
to the
8.
whole song. So it was like there is like a sweet spot with how long your performance is.
Yeah.
So I've always preferred demos that are under 5 minutes.
Yes, that do not have the same refrain.
Yeah, over and over with the same choreography to the same refrain
same
on
blocks,
repeat. Yeah.
But it was pretty awesome. But yeah, sometimes you have to speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
In order to make sure that it doesn't end up being bomb, 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 bomb. So that even though it's in rhythm, it's fast and it's powerful.
Well, and you also mentioned if you were to choreograph this demo all over again, you would have picked a song first.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's usually how it works out better, or is it 50-50?
It depends on the group.
Yeah.
So, especially when a group's struggling with timing, and they got really good the more they went on, but
Yeah.
still, if especially you have under black belts in there and people who haven't been on demo for years, because it takes years.
Some of those, that was their first performance.
Yeah.
They hadn't done demo ever.
And
Yeah.
it takes years to develop that, internal timing. And, the best teams are consistent teams.
Yeah.
So, and since that's usually not an option for, younger demo teams, having something where they can hit on a certain rhythm and on a beat, can be the difference between everyone falling off and everyone staying super locked in.
Yeah.
So picking a song first allows you to choreograph it in a way where it's going to be energetic, but also together. So choreographing it before the song, then if the song's a little bit faster than you anticipate, which was the case with this, that even though it was doable and it looked great, it was still, when I was choreographing it, faster than I anticipated because I wasn't thinking back in black in my head when we did it. So yeah, I feel like picking the song first allows you to find a really good Goldilocks zone.
So the last category I was kind of thinking in terms of the value of demo teams has to do with the culture. So there's the personal growth characteristic, which I feel is when you're on demo team and you take it seriously, your sense of responsibility heightens. From a cultural place, which is zooming out a little bit and looking at the whole school, the value of demo team and what it adds to your dojo's culture. And I think one of the things, especially if you have a good demo team, is pride. So for years, before COVID, we would often bring a demo team of instructors or high-ranking black belts to, tournaments or big events. And, there was a sense of pride from students that weren't on demo team that they were at least part of the school that those demonstrating athletes were a part of.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, inside and outside the school. Because I feel like when you have a demo team like that, and especially when you have beginner students, white through orange, and then they see the demo team for the first time, and they're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to look like when I'm a black belt?
Yeah.
And there is an excitement, because there's not a lot of time where, with the exception of the Black Belt Club Showcase, which is awesome, but we didn't used to have that.
Right.
Where kids get to actually see that kind of stuff in action.
Yeah.
And they get this excitement because now they can start to see themselves in a role like that one day. When it's kind of hard to, if you don't know what to expect, you don't really know what you're going to be. You're just like, oh, I want to be a black belt one day.
Yeah.
You don't know what that means, though. And then from, an outside perspective, you're showing, you're showing off to other schools. You have that sense of pride. People go in, they get to see our demo team, representing at a tournament, and then to the public, because the public sees the demo team and people get excited, and that's how we pull in new students.
Yeah.
And especially since, even though we kick butt, when we do our demo, just the things that, after someone, takes another student to the ground and then punches them in the ribs, then they stand up and bow and high five each other.
Mm-hmm.
Just instilling, what we do here. That we're respectful to each other, and when the public sees that, I think it draws in the right crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is, we've talked before about how this is a hybrid martial arts style. There's, sport martial arts, right? And then traditional. Mm-hmm. Did I get those terms right?
Yeah.
Combat sport. Combat sport.
I think sport martial arts.
Sports martial arts is a little different. Yeah. Which is funny because they sound similar, but they are very different.
Yeah.
But I can see from more the, I guess, for lack of a better term, traditionalist thing where there should be a purity to the martial art. Demonstrating can feel like a necessary evil. Because I've been reading the book you lent me about William Chun Sr. and William Chow.
Yeah.
They're both named William. I don't know why that wasn't clicking right. But one of the things that really stood out to me is that William Chow in particular, phenomenal martial artist, incredibly influential, especially for Kempo. And he was a terrible businessman. And most highly skilled martial artists are. Amazing martial artists, not really good business people. But demo is one of the ways you keep the martial arts alive, because it's one of the ways you get more people into it. One of the reasons martial arts is so popular for kids is because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So I think that not only do demo teams, give students something to aspire to, it gives the demonstrators a sense of pride of being role models and leaders. In a lot of other ways, it's how we can keep doing the awesome things that we're doing. And I also just think, it just occurred to me that, we talked about leadership a few episodes ago, and I really do think demo team and leadership are two elements of the same overall thing. I think that to be a strong member of a demo team, you need to be a leader. And if you're going to be a strong leader, especially a martial arts instructor, you need the ability to demonstrate. So I think that they may focus on different elements of the same overall thing, but it's still parts of the same overall thing. Dom and Johnny in the morning.